We're going to get started. I'm going to tell you a couple things. During this portion of our reunion, we want everybody to pay maximum attention. And before I forget it, because I do forget stuff, I can tell you, each time a presentation is made to one of our veterans, as much as we want to stand and applaud each one of them personally, we want to make sure that each presentation is given the dignity that it deserves. So we'll save everything until the end, and then we'll thank these guys and this lady for all that they've done for us. I want to welcome all of you, all of our classmates, the classmates' spouses, the special guests, and all of these young people that are going to be here. And if you've looked at your program, on the inside of the program is a little insert that gives you each of their names. And Bob is our student body president from many years ago, is going to give me a hand, and he's going to do part of this work, and I'll do some, and we'll get through this thing and give these folks again the honor that they deserve. Bob.
Thank you. Today's colors will be presented by the Cherokee High School ROTC, and this is the listing of them. The senior Army instructor is Mr. William A. Carter, Jr. The Army instructor that's with the students tonight is Sergeant First Class Retired Jason Trimco. The cadets are as follows: Cadet First Colonel Rachel Maney, Cadet Major Nakia Swain, and Cadet First Class Lieutenant Cameron Trimco. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the current Swain High School Student Body President, Mr. Jonathan Edwards, followed by the invocation by classmate Eddie Hollifield. The National Anthem also is students from Swain County High School, Cyril Hippolito, Katie Connor, and their instructor is Nicole Hewitt.
Okay, folks, for all that are able, please stand, remain standing for the presentation of the colors, the singing of our national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation, and the retirement of the colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's have just a moment of silence for all the people that we're remembering here tonight, for our friend that we just buried today, and the others we lost in the class, and all the men and women that have been in the service for us. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for each and every member of our class. Lord, for those that have been in service with us, for those that have given their lives for us, we just ask you blessings on their families. We ask you blessings on those that are alive and here to celebrate with us. We ask you to go with us all through this service, and we thank you so much for our dear country. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen. Let's give these young folks a big hand, would you please? You can all be seated, please. I'm going to read a little bit, folks, because I want to be able to get through it rather quickly, but I don't want to miss anything. This endeavor to have our veterans know how much we appreciate you started more than 2.5 years ago. You remember it began at our last reunion in May of 2019. Through the collaboration and suggestions of many, we have brought this endeavor to fruition. For your willingness to serve, we say thanks and hold each of you in the highest esteem. One of our veterans gave all early on in the battle, and many have given all in the years to come. Others continue to live with resultant difficulties, although masked by your strength. As you will remember, we asked many questions about your branch of service, years served, distinguished awards, and other accomplishments. Our plans were to list these for each of you. That became an impossible task. Only a book would have sufficed. Several retired from active duty to continue service in other ways. Your collective service in this group spans more than 280 years and includes many Purple Hearts, numerous Bronze Stars, meritorious medals, top security clearance, and as I said, continuous service after retirement. While it was imperative that we request of our 11th District Congressman, the Honorable Madison Cawthorn, and our District 50 North Carolina State Senator, the Honorable Kevin Corbin, they were understanding our intent collectively and enthusiastically confirmed our request. You can be sure that the young ladies named in our brochure, Miss Bailey Hartzell and Miss Cindy Hobbs, were 100% committed to make it happen both in Washington and in Raleigh, North Carolina. The multiple text, emails, and telephone calls attest to that fact, beginning in mid-May and ending in September, with Ms. Hobbs personally making delivery to Bryson City from Raleigh to guarantee your receipt today as required. It may be the first time for you a flag has been collectively flown over the United States Capitol, and then it traveled to the Pentagon where it was flown again, then it was shipped to the state of North Carolina where it was flown over the capital of North Carolina. There is a presentation coming to each of you that will signify that the flag was flown as it contains a certificate of each flying for you. Also, we have included in the certification a certificate made by the class of 1965 that in the background has a picture of all three: the Capitol of the United States, the Pentagon, the capital of North Carolina, and in the bottom right-hand corner, a picture of our old high school. We had planned on all except the Pentagon until, by the suggestion of our Miss Jackie Lindsay Bradley, we could also have the flag flown over the Pentagon. So it was quickly added so that the last flying, or the second flying, would happen. In addition, you will be receiving 2 pens, and you have a packet inside your certificates that has a copy of the program that you have in front of you, so you'll have that to keep. But you will be receiving 2 pens. One is a flag pen that says veteran on it. The other is a flag pen that says proud veteran. Lastly, your picture or a silhouette picture signifying your branch of service and the years served when they were known is sitting on this table. That is yours to take when you leave today. We searched for someone that would be perfect to make our veteran presentations to each of you. We found that person right in our midst. We are honored to have Mr. Joseph Daniel Vasquez and his lovely wife with us today. He is a 31-year retired Marine Corps Chief Warrant Officer, Gunner Vasquez. When we asked him if he would do this in 2019, he quickly said, yes, you have to remind me. So that's all we had to do. We will ask each of you to come forward to receive your presentation from Mr. Vasquez. As you receive your presentation, please pause with Mr. Vasquez so those classmates viewing via Facebook will be able to see you. Please hold the flag and certificate package with name toward the camera after your receipt. So we're going to pause long enough for that to happen because we want it to be on the video. Since we have only one lady veteran in our midst, we will break the alphabetical order to stay true to our upbringing of ladies first. Now I'm going to show you just for a second with Bob, and he's going to be calling these out, but Mr. Vasquez, if you don't mind, sir, he will be standing here. We will hand him the flag, and then he in turn, we'd like you to stand here if you're receiving so that we can see you on the camera. Okay? All right.
It is certainly an honor and a privilege for me to do this. I thank Mr. Russell for asking me to take part. As he said, the First Lady, Mrs. Bertha Ruth Simons Zollinger, accepting for herself is Mrs. Zollinger and her husband, Mr. Joe Zollinger.
This presentation will be made to Mr. Terry Allison, accepting for Mr. Allison. The husband of classmate Miss Judy Oynby Allison is Mr. Bob Marr, as the family has a prior commitment. So they don't think. That's all right. We won't give them to them. Let them pick them up. Don't worry about it. Just let them pick them up. Bob. Let him get a picture, Bob. Okay, you'll have to accept. Next is Mr. William Stanley Arvey. And Stanley had promised he'd be here, or was planning to be here. We don't know why he was not able, so Bob will receive for him, and we'll make sure that he gets it. Barbara, where's Barbara? Stiles. Is she here? Yeah, okay. Here, Nick,
Mr. Willard James Barker. Accepting for Mr. Barker is sister Mrs. Barbara Barker Stiles. Mr. Robert Leon Biggs is accepting is his wife and classmate, Miss Joyce Carson Biggs. Okay. The next one is Mr. Floyd Daniel Bowers, and he could not make it tonight.
I'll put stop there just for a minute. Those that couldn't be here tonight, you can be assured they will receive this, exactly like you both said, okay?
Mr. Albert Jackson Bowman. Accepting from Mr. Bowman is Mr. Kevin Bowman, son of classmate Miss Barbara Thompson Bowman, and Mr. Bowman. I'm sorry also they couldn't make it. Okay, the family of Mr. Lester James Bryson, and accepting for the family was supposed to be his wife, Ms. Betty Littrell, who was our classmate, and her sister, but Mrs. Betty at the last minute, I believe, got sick. Mr. James Douglas Burnett, accepting for himself as Mr. Burnett. Mr. Roger Lee Burnett, accepting, also as his brother, Mr. Douglas Burnett. Mr. William Lester Burnett, accepting for himself as Mr. Burnett and wife and classmate Mrs. Barbara Higdon Burnett. Mr. Frank Edward Cabe. Mr. Cabe and his wife and classmate, Ms. Sandra Woody Cabe, were unable to be here. His presentation will definitely be shipped to him. Mr. Marvin Ray Cable, accepting for himself as Mr. Cable and his wife, Miss Charlotte Cable. Mr. Noah Max Cochran, accepting for himself as Mr. Cochran, and we're remembering his wife and classmate, Mrs. June Smith Cochran. Russell. You've got the next one.
Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah.
Is it in that box over?
The family of Mr. Roy Philip Cope, accepting is Mr. Bob Marr, for wife and classmate, Miss Rhonda Oinby Cope, and the family.
Mr. Lewis Carroll Crisp, accepting for himself is Mr. Crisp and his wife, Miss Sarah Crisp. Mr. William Gerald Davis, Jr., accepting for Mr. Davis is Mr. Charles Branton. Mr. Billy Wayne Deals, accepting for Mr. Deals is his son, Mr. Brandon Deals, and his daughter-in-law, Ms. Lucy Deals. Mr. Gary Dean Duncan, originally his son, Mr. Gary Dean Duncan Jr., was coming, but unfortunately his work has taken him either to South Florida or Aruba. So I will accept for his family and get it to them later. Mr. Martin Dale Dunn, accepting for himself is Mr. Dunn. Family of Mr. James Williams Edwards, accepting for the family is wife and classmate, Miss Reva Howard Edwards. Mr. James Howard Fellows. Accepting for himself, Mr. Fellows. Mr. David Michael Ferguson. Accepting from Mr. Ferguson is sister Miss Dottie Ferguson Nelson and niece Miss Sarah Parton. Family of Mr. Charles Winford Fortner. Accepting for the family is wife and classmate Miss Barbara Pilkington Fortner and their son Mr. Richard Fortner. And I don't think they were able to attend. Family of Mr. Carl Eugene Fracas, accepting for the family as classmate Ms. Jeannie Nation Fracas Knight, and she was unable to be here for this presentation, but it will be sent to her. Mr. Albert H. Glassglow, accepting from Mr. Glassglow is Mr. Jack Pardon. Classmate Marcella's husband. Mr. Roy M. Green, unfortunately Mr. Green is with his sister who is facing difficult health issues. His presentation will be sent to him. We are remembering classmate Ms. Mary Ann Schuler Green.
You do this, I don't want to be a problem. You do this.
Mr. Billy Green, accepting for himself, is Mr. Green and his wife, Miss Patricia Green. I'm sorry, they had a death in the family. Mr. David Lee Green, accepting for Mr. Green, is cousin Mrs. Delight Woody Bratton. Family of Mr. Philip Michael Hall. Accepting for the family is daughter Vita Hall and her husband Scott Cody. Mr. Joseph Wayman Howard, and due to declining health of his wife and classmate, Mrs. Kay Revis Howard, they could not be here. His presentation will be sent to him. Mr. Daniel E. Height, accepting for himself as Mr. Height and his wife, Miss Betty Height. Mr. Larry Hyde. Mr. Hyde is unable to travel, so his presentation will be sent to him. Mr. Frank L. Jones, accepting for himself as Mr. Jones and his wife, Miss Rita Jones. Family of Mr. Marvin O. Jones, accepting for the family as classmate, Miss Donna Webb Underwood. Family of Mr. Johnny Richard King, accepting for the family as cousin, Mr. Jack Pardon. Russ, tell him to stay and sip RVs. Mr. Robert Vincent King. Mr. R.V. King is unable to travel to receive his presentation. Mr. Jack Parton will accept on his behalf. Mr. John Robert Lakey, accepting for himself as Mr. Lakey and his wife, Miss Beth Lakey. Family of Mr. William L. Lambert, accepting for the family as wife and classmate, Miss Margaret Farley Lambert. Mr. Billy Wayne Loftus, accepting for himself as Mr. Loftus and wife and classmate, Ms. Annette Bowers Loftus. Family of Mr. Robert Dennis Matthews, accepting for the family as wife, Mrs. Cindy Matthews. Family of Mr. Kenneth Donald McLean, accepting for the family as daughter Miss Cindy McLean Lakey and grandson Mr. Brandon Morgan. Family of Mr. Stuart Ellis Macan Jr. Excuse me, I mispronounced that. Family of Mr. Ellis Stuart Macan Jr. Accepting for the family is sister Mrs. Kay Macan Moore. Mr. Don Wayne Moon. Mr. Moon is unable to attend. His presentation will be sent to him.
Mr. David Harold Ollis, accepting for Mr. Ollis, his classmate, Mr. Bob Marr.
Family of Mr. William Lloyd Phillips, accepting for the family as son William and daughter-in-law Laura Phillips. They were unable to attend, I guess. Mr. Lon Dennis Queen, Jr., accepting for himself as Mr. Queen and special friend, Ms. Reba Dillinger. Mr. Lonnie Buster Ramsey, wife and classmate, Miss Pearl Acquire Ramsey, was unable to be with us. His presentation will be sent to her. Family of Mr. Larry Randall, at the request of wife and classmate Ms. Pat Birchfield Randall, Mr. Vernon Rock Ledford is accepting for her. Mr. John Edward Rowland. Accepting for Mr. Rowland is friend Mr. Boyd Wright. Family of Mr. David Joe Sanders. We've attempted to locate a family member to receive his presentation. We've been unable to. If any of you know of a family member for David Sanders, please let us know. Family of Mr. Douglas R. Sutton. There again, we've attempted to locate a family member and have not been able to. If anyone knows of one, please get that information to us. Family of Mr. Edward Joe Thomas, accepting for the family as wife and classmate Ms. Nellie Klein Thomas and their daughter Ms. Kirsten Vaughn. Family of Mr. Arthur Wade, accepting for his family. His wife was planning on to be here, Miss Judy, and their daughter, but as you all know, his funeral service was today, and they were unable to attend. Mr. Jack Harold Webb. Accepting for himself is Mr. Webb and special friend Ms. Rhonda Gibson. Mr. Jackson Lee Wood. Mr. Wood's presentation will be sent to his wife and classmate, Ms. Olivia Bennett Wood, who were unable to attend. Mr. Billy Ray Woodard, accepting for himself as Mr. Woodard, and his wife, Miss Gail Woodard. Mr. Joe Brian Zollinger, accepting for himself as Mr. Zollinger, and wife and classmate, Miss Bertha Ruth Simons Zollinger.
I'm going to ask at this time if Mr. Dale Dunn, Mr. Jim Fellas, and Mr. Dennis Queen would come up, please. These three gentlemen spent their entire careers in the military. We thank them very much for their service. And as I mentioned before, we asked Mr. Vasquez in 2019 if he would be so kind to come and make this presentation to our veterans. He didn't hesitate. He said yes immediately. When he said that, and we started the process of having our flags flown, we could not leave Mr. Vasquez out. So we also had a flag flown for him in his name, the same as our veterans. We thank you, sir, and these three gentlemen will present it to you. Folks, we thank you very much. Our only regret is that we didn't do this some 20 years ago, when we wouldn't have to make so many presentations to the families. You all contributed to this. As if you'll notice, there's two corporate sponsors. One is the son, and the other is Jack and Joanne Parton. And in doing so, we didn't have to come back and ask you for a few more bucks. The other thing I would like to say is each time we have one of these reunions, we have a lot of people that do a lot of things. They always contribute without asking, and most times immediately upon knowing exactly what it is we plan to do. And at this time, I would like to take a moment to thank for these people for the extraordinary work that they do to make our class, our reunions, special. One you saw receive a special thank you last time, Mr. Jack Parton. Jack knows that we can't afford a second one for him.
Underneath this? Right here, Russell.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me have these. You start that file. And in keeping with earlier statement, ladies first, this young lady has always been there for us from the time we knew her in high school through multiple reunions, never saying no, always doing whatever was needed. Special classes, as you remember last time, are made of special people. Swain County High School, class of 65, Virginia, Welch, Gribble, one of the best. Miss Virginia.
He said young lady.
Young lady. When you get through with that, I've got something to say. As always.
This next gentleman, when he knew that we were going to do the presentations for our veterans, he said, Russell, don't you forget, you call me immediately when the decisions are made, and I'll be there. Well, he couldn't be here, but he was truly in support. Special classes are made of special people. Swain County High School, class of 65, Paul Allen Garrett, one of the best. This gentleman couldn't be here, although he was here in spirit. As he texted today, he had planned to be here. He was really looking forward to it, and some unforeseen things happened. He stood at this podium on every class reunion, and many times before he finished, we were rocking with laughter. Special classes are made of special people. Swain County High School, class of 65, Mr. David Ray C., one of the best. This last gentleman was one that we looked to in high school, chose him to be our student body president. And he has always, as the others, stood by us, supported us, did anything possible he could to help, including tonight. The first folks that you saw, the ROTC group, the young folks that sang the national anthem, and the young man that did the Pledge of Allegiance was all orchestrated by Mr. Marr. He first went to Swain County High School. Unfortunately, they didn't have an ROTC group anymore, so he immediately said, let's go for Cherokee. And I said, yes, please. And he did, and they did a wonderful job. Mr. Bob Marr Special classes are made of special people. Swain County High School, class of 65, Bobby Ray Marr, one of the best.
I need to say.
Okay. Let me get through first. You can't talk till I get through.
All right.
I tell them we're approaching if they want to go ahead and get ready. We can take a little break and visit her. Folks, we got one more little presentation to make. And then we'll take a short break and visit a little bit while they're putting our dinner out, okay? But this presentation is going to be made, and I want to first thank her, because I can tell you what we did tonight would be absolutely impossible without my lovely lady, Miss Roma. She's been with us every reunion since 1985, and she continues to be my total support, making me look as good as you can believe. Miss Roma.
A good friend of mine reminded me last night of the reason for this award. So for all the spouses of classmates, this award goes to Miss Amy Vasquez for putting up with Joe.
I'll lay this over here. Now listen, we'll tell them to get her dinner out. It won't be long. Don't give Virginia too much time.
I won't.
But the one last thing I want to tell you at the request of Mr. Vasquez, in celebration of the birth of the United States Marine Corps, 10 November 2021, guest of honor, Mr. Marcel Gogadak, 1800-1900, social chow at Motor Pool on Kirklands Creek, 1900s cake cutting ceremony, informal attire, 301 Kirklands Creek Road, and everyone here is invited.
Always there, because he'll say, wait a minute, let me ask Rona. And he does. But you just don't know how much you mean to our class. And we're not even going to consider him. But thank you. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you much. Don't give up. Next time we have a reunion, don't you dare say I can't do it. What? I'm not going to trip over the cord.
Watch on your right foot.
And listen, y'all don't pay too much attention to him. Look, there's your dental floss.
There it is, you're right.
It is.
Go ahead and sit down. You're done.
You are so hateful. Then I got him through college 101 English.
She thinks she did. If she hadn't sat beside me, she'd have never got through there. No, you better not. We'll just drop that and move on. These folks are hungry. I'll be very brief. I was in education for 43 years, and I've seen a lot of kids go through school. I've seen a lot of classes come and go. I've seen a lot of senior classes in my time, but I've never seen a senior class with as much character and as much quality as there is in the class of 1965. So first of all, I want to congratulate you on that. But without the leadership of people like Russell Winchester, this just didn't happen. There was hours of work went into this. And you know, he can pass it on to some of us, but no, that's not right. He and his wife basically are responsible for what you've seen tonight. And I hope you wrote something in the card to that effect. I hope you did. And if anybody didn't get to sign the card, we have it up here. And Russell, on behalf of the class of 1965, I would like to present this to you and your wife. Your classmates have written notes in here to you. There's a little gift in here if you take your lovely wife out to a nice dinner somewhere. And we could not say enough, and we could not give you enough money to tell you how much we appreciate your leadership and your guidance and your faithfulness to our class. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Look at that. You moved it over there. Folks, visit a few minutes. We actually got through our presentations faster than we thought we would. So we get, oh, you want to say something? Oh, okay. You know, I forgot about something. Look at your tables. Look at the corner back there. As always, Miss Brenda and Miss Teresa made the tables in the corner look absolutely beautiful. Thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. And Teresa wanted me to tell you that if there's a sticker on the back of your chair, don't turn it upside down yet, you may take the lovely mom on your table home with you. Please take the maroon dotted mask at your place setting home with you as well. Huh? All of the money on the table. No. The maroon dotted mask.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Take your mask off.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies. We appreciate you. Anybody else wants